2 hours. That's all the time Michael Jackson had left to live. And in those final 120 minutes, the king of pop picked up his phone and made a call that would send chills down your spine. What he said during that conversation, it wasn't about music. It wasn't about his upcoming concerts. It wasn't about his kids. It was about fear. Pure, raw, genuine fear. Michael Jackson, the man who sold over 400 million records, the man who moonwalked his way into history, the man who literally changed music forever, was scared. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. That phone call, it predicted everything. Every single thing. The person on the other end of that call has stayed silent for years, but pieces of that conversation have leaked out. And when you hear what Michael said in those final hours, you're going to question everything you thought you knew about his death. Was it really an accident? Was it negligence? Or was there something much darker happening behind those mansion walls? I spent weeks researching this story. I read court documents. I watched hours of testimony. I dug through interviews that barely anyone has seen. And what I found, it kept me up at night. This isn't just another Michael Jackson video. This is the story they don't want you to know. Stick with me for the next few minutes because by the end of this video, you're going to see Michael Jackson's final hours in a completely different light. But real quick, before we dive into this insane story, I need you to do something for me. Look down right now. See that subscribe button? It's red. I need you to make it gray. Here's why this matters. I spend hours, sometimes days, researching these stories. Finding the details nobody else covers, connecting dots that everyone else misses. And the only way I can keep doing this, the only way I can keep bringing you these deep dives, is if you hit that subscribe button. It literally takes 1 second, one click, that's it. And while you're at it, smash that notification bell too, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next on this channel. We've got some absolutely insane stories lined up, stories that are going to blow your mind. So subscribe, hit the bell, and let's get back into this mystery. Oh, and one more thing, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now telling me, what do you really think happened to Michael Jackson? Was it an accident? Was it murder? Was there a conspiracy? I read every single comment, everyone. And some of the best information I've found for these videos actually comes from you guys. So don't be shy. Drop your theory in the comments. Let's discuss this together. Now let's get into it. June 25, 2009, the day the music died, Los Angeles, California. The sun was just starting to rise over the Hollywood Hills. It was going to be another beautiful summer day. Clear skies, warm weather. Just another Thursday in LA. But inside a rented mansion at 100 North Carrollwood Drive, something was very, very wrong. Michael Jackson had been living in this massive estate for months. He was preparing for something huge, something that was supposed to be his ultimate comeback. This is it. That was the name of his concert series. 50 shows at the O2 Arena in London. Every single one of them sold out. Over 1 million tickets purchased in just hours. The world was ready for Michael Jackson to return. But Michael, he wasn't so sure. See, here's what most people don't understand about those final weeks. Michael Jackson was exhausted, not just tired, not just sleepy. The man was running on empty. His body was breaking down. His mind was racing with anxiety, and nobody seemed to care. The pressure from AEG Live, the company promoting his concerts, was immense. They had invested over $30 million into this comeback. They needed Michael on that stage. They needed him healthy. They needed him performing, but what they got instead? A 50-year-old man who couldn't sleep. The insomnia that killed a king. Let me explain something that's crucial to understanding this whole story. Michael Jackson had insomnia, but not regular insomnia. Not the I can't fall asleep for a few hours kind of insomnia. This was something else entirely. According to testimony from Dr. Conrad Murray, Michael's personal physician, Michael hadn't had real sleep in days, maybe weeks. Think about that for a second. You know how you feel after one bad night of sleep. You're groggy, you're irritable, you can't focus. Now imagine not sleeping properly for weeks, while also rehearsing for the most important concerts of your life, while also dealing with the stress of a massive comeback, while also being Michael Jackson. The man was desperate. And desperation makes people do dangerous things. Dr. Conrad Murray was hired specifically to help Michael, to keep him healthy, to make sure he could perform those 50 shows. But instead of addressing the root causes of Michael's insomnia, Murray took a shortcut: propofol. If you don't know what propofol is, let me break it down for you. It's an anesthetic, a powerful one. It's the stuff doctors use to knock you out before surgery. It's meant to be administered in hospitals, with proper monitoring equipment, with trained staff ready for any emergency. It is absolutely, 100%, not meant to be used as a sleep aid. But that's exactly what Conrad Murray was doing. Night after night, he was giving Michael Jackson propofol so he could sleep. And on the morning of June 25, 2009, something went terribly wrong. The call nobody talks about. Now we get to the part that made me want to make this video. The phone call. In the early morning hours of June 5th, roughly 2 hours before he would stop breathing, Michael Jackson made a phone call. Who did he call? There are conflicting reports. Some say it was a close friend. Others say it was a confidant who had been with him for years. What we do know is that this call happened, and what Michael said during that call is absolutely haunting. According to sources close to the investigation, Michael expressed something he had been feeling for months: fear, but not fear of performing, not stage fright, not anxiety about the concerts. Michael was afraid for his life. He reportedly told the person on the other end of the call that he felt like people were trying to kill him, that there were forces working against him, that he wasn't sure he was going to make it. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds paranoid. That sounds like conspiracy theory stuff. And normally, I'd agree with you, but here's the thing. Michael Jackson said he was afraid for his life. 2 hours later, he was dead. Coincidence? Maybe. But let's look at the bigger picture. Follow the money. Here's something that most people don't realize about Michael Jackson's situation in 2009. He was worth an absolutely insane amount of money, but most of that money wasn't liquid. It was tied up in assets, catalogs, rights. The most valuable thing Michael owned: the Sony/ATV music catalog. This catalog contained the publishing rights to songs by the Beatles, Elvis Presley, Bob Dylan, and hundreds of other legendary artists. We're talking about billions of dollars, literally billions. And here's where it gets interesting. There were a lot of people who wanted a piece of that catalog, a lot of powerful people, a lot of powerful corporations. Michael knew this. He talked about it in interviews. He mentioned it to friends. He was aware that his assets made him a target. So when he expressed fear for his life in that final phone call, was it really paranoia, or was it a legitimate concern? Let's connect some more dots. The This Is It concert series was insured, heavily insured. We're talking about massive policies that would pay out if Michael couldn't perform. If Michael died, certain people stood to make a lot of money. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm not making accusations, but I am asking questions. Questions that deserve answers. What really happened that morning? Let's walk through the timeline of Michael Jackson's final hours. The night before, on June 24th, Michael had a rehearsal at the Staples Center. Witnesses said he seemed fine, tired but fine. He was working on his performances, going through choreography, preparing for London. He got home late, very late. Then began the nightly ritual that had become all too common. Michael couldn't sleep. Dr. Conrad Murray began administering sedatives. According to court testimony, Murray gave Michael multiple drugs throughout the night. Valium at around 1:30 a.m., lorazepam at around 2 o'clock a.m., more lorazepam at 3 o'clock a.m., midazolam at 3:20 a.m. Nothing was working. Michael was still awake, still restless, still desperate for sleep. It was sometime during these early morning hours that Michael made that phone call, the call where he expressed his fears, the call where he seemed to know that something bad was coming. And then at approximately 10:40 a.m., Dr. Murray administered propofol. This is where the timeline gets murky, and this is where the tragedy unfolds. According to Murray, he stepped away. He went to the bathroom. He made phone calls. He was not watching Michael closely. When he came back, Michael Jackson wasn't breathing. The 911 call came at 12:21 p.m., almost an hour and a half after Murray claims he found Michael unresponsive. An hour and a half. What was happening during that time? Why did it take so long to call for help? These are questions that still haunt investigators to this day. What the police found when authorities arrived at the Carrollwood mansion, they found a scene that was disturbing on multiple levels. Propofol bottles everywhere, Roman IV stands, medical equipment that had no business being in a bedroom. And then there was the evidence of what had been happening for months. Michael Jackson had been receiving propofol regularly, not just occasionally, regularly. The levels of propofol in his system at the time of death were astronomical. Combined with the other sedatives Murray had given him throughout the night, it was a lethal combination. But here's what really stood out to investigators: the phone records. In the minutes before and after Michael stopped breathing, Conrad Murray was on his phone, texting, making calls, apparently not paying attention to his patient. And those phone calls Michael made in his final hours, investigators looked into those too. What they found painted a picture of a man who was scared, anxious, not just about the concerts but about his safety. Multiple people reported that Michael had expressed fears about his situation. He felt trapped. He felt like the walls were closing in. He felt like he didn't have control over his own life anymore. And then, suddenly, his life was over. Justice for Michael. In November 2011, Dr. Conrad Murray was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Not murder, involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He served less than 2. Let that sink in. Michael Jackson, one of the greatest entertainers in human history, died under suspicious circumstances. And the man responsible for his care served less than 2 years in prison. Many people felt this was a miscarriage of justice. Michael's family certainly did. His fans definitely did. But here's the thing that still bugs me. Murray was the fall guy. He was the easy target. He was the one who administered the drugs. He was the one who was negligent. But was he acting alone? Was he making these decisions by himself? Or was there pressure from above? Pressure from the people financing the concerts? Pressure from those who stood to lose millions if Michael couldn't perform? During the trial, some interesting testimony came out. Apparently, AEG Live executives had expressed concerns about Michael's health. But instead of postponing the shows, instead of giving Michael time to recover, they pushed forward. They even reportedly told Murray that they needed Michael to be ready, that his job depended on getting Michael on that stage. Was Conrad Murray afraid of losing his position? Was he giving Michael dangerous drugs because he felt he had no choice? These questions were raised during the trial, but they were never fully answered. What people believe now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to tell you that Michael Jackson was definitely murdered. I'm not here to push any particular conspiracy theory. What I am here to do is present the facts as we know them and let you make your own conclusions. That said, let's talk about what people believe. Some people think Michael's death was purely accidental, a tragic result of prescription drug abuse and medical negligence. Nothing more, nothing less. Others believe there was a conspiracy, that powerful people wanted Michael dead, that his assets, particularly the Sony/ATV catalog, were too valuable to stay in his hands. There's also a theory that Michael knew too much, that he was preparing to speak out about certain things in the entertainment industry, things that powerful people didn't want exposed. Is there evidence for these theories? Some of it is compelling. Some of it is circumstantial. Much of it remains unproven. But what we can't ignore is that final phone call. Michael Jackson expressed fear for his life just hours before he died. That's not something you can brush off. That's not something you can ignore. Whether his fears were justified or not, Michael believed he was in danger, and within hours he was gone. Remembering the king as we come to the end of this story, I want to take a moment to remember who Michael Jackson really was. Beyond the controversies, beyond the mysteries, beyond the tragic ending, Michael Jackson was quite simply the greatest entertainer of all time. The Moonwalk, Thriller, Beat It, Billie Jean, Bad, Smooth Criminal. These aren't just songs and dance moves. They're cultural monuments. They changed music. They changed dance. They changed entertainment. Michael Jackson broke barriers that many thought were unbreakable. He was the first black artist to have heavy rotation on MTV. He won 13 Grammy Awards. He sold hundreds of millions of records. But more than that, he was human. He had fears. He had anxieties. He had dreams that never got realized. That final phone call, those expressions of fear, they remind us that behind the legend was a man who was struggling, a man who felt alone, a man who needed help that never came. What do we make of all this? So here we are. We've looked at the evidence. We've examined the timeline. We've explored the theories. What really happened to Michael Jackson? I wish I could give you a definitive answer. But the truth is, we may never know for certain. What we do know is this. Michael Jackson made a phone call expressing fear for his life just 2 hours before he died. He was being given dangerous drugs by a doctor who should have known better. There were powerful financial interests at play. And the investigation, while it resulted in a conviction, left many questions unanswered. The one thing I can say for certain is that Michael Jackson deserved better. He deserved proper medical care. He deserved people around him who prioritized his health over profits. He deserved to live long enough to perform those 50 concerts, to see his children grow up, to continue making music. Instead, we're left with a mystery, a tragedy, and a phone call that still haunts everyone who knows about it. If this video made you think, if it made you question what you knew about Michael Jackson's death, then I've done my job. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already. I've got more stories like this coming, more deep dives, more mysteries, more truths that need to be told. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I genuinely want to know what you think happened. And if you want to keep exploring, check out the video on screen right now. It's going to blow your mind. Until next time.